Assalamualaikum to Madam Rusnawati and to everyone. So my name is Rusaila Atra binti Azmi and my metric number 265233. Alright, I will present about the introduction for our topic, which is Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad Transformation Premiership. So as we all know that Malaysia is country that is a respect for its advanced progress and also stability, not only in the Southeast Asian region but also on the world stage. So the fourth Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad, of his leadership from 16 July 1981 until 31 October 2003, as we can see from the longest governing as a Prime Minister, which is for 22 years period in the Southeast Asia region. And then during the time of Tun Dr. Mahathir, there have been many changes and also challenges that Malaysia have undergone a very significant changes when Tun Dr. Mahathir has transformed an agriculture country into a modern industry country. So Tun Dr. Mahathir is also called the father of modernization in the Malaysia. This can be seen when he has made many changes in all aspects that affect the economy and also the politician in Malaysia. Okay, so this some background about Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. He served as Prime Minister for 20 years, which is the longest serving holder of that office. So his leadership also under his governing from 16 July 1981 until 31 October 2003. Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad was born on 20 December 1925 at Alustar, Kedah. And the name Tun Dr. Mahathir means that vast development of modern Malaysia. So from Tun Dr. Mahathir also, from his education, we can see from the Sekolah Melayu, Seberang Perak, College Sultan Abdul Hamid and College King Edward, College of Medicine in Singapore. And he is also has open-minded or critical thinking, and through his idea also can go beyond the times. These are the factors that always important in a national decision, which is have influenced him to make any decisions. For example, in cases that affect the politics, economy, social culture aspect, and most importantly in the field of involvement in international relations. Okay, from the next slide is about individual characteristic by Tun Dr. Mahathir. As we can see that Tun Dr. Mahathir believed in leadership by exemplifying the values of work love in the people of Malaysia. As an example, spending much time at work. And the next strong discipline is also shows Mahathir Mohamad in his inception that he has been granted a strict and also serious status in dealing in any situation. For example, as we can see that through how he dealing with the case of his decision of 1988 Deputy Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who was spent 50 years in jail on charge of corruption and also sexual harassment arising under the International Security Act. And the next is about analysis Tun Dr. Mahathir. As we can see that Tun Dr. Mahathir is a very virtuous leadership characteristic by which his own attitude and also personality. He also effective well in manage government framework. So leadership pattern of Tun Dr. Mahathir, as we can see that, as you all know that Tun Dr. Mahathir's power trends are that he has extraordinary ideas which are about how to implement policies and control the administration system in Malaysia with a multiracial country of three important races, which is Malay, Chinese and Indian. So Tun Dr. Mahathir believed that a good leader must be competent through a range of concept and skill, followed by a prosperity of experience in politics, governance, as well as in including foreign relations with other countries too.
Hello, my name is Intan Nur Salsabila binti Muhammad Razali, 263202. I will continue this presentation with the definition of leadership. Leadership is an interesting subject to all communities. It gives a picture of a powerful and dynamic individuals who rules a government or a country. We can conclude that the leadership prostrates in any activity that is neatly and systemically arranged. Leadership is both directly and indirectly connected to the overall operation of the organization. In addition, it also closely connected to influence. This is because any leader needs a strong strategy. Each situation involves a pattern of action that is acceptable to the situation. Leadership is thus a feather of a specific kind. Effective leadership can give satisfaction to followers, and this situation will result in excellent work performance. The next is the definition transformational leadership. Transformational leadership theory is among the theories of superior leadership. It is a leadership strategy by making effort to raise visibility and encourage subordinate workers or members of the company to make additional effort to accomplish corporate goals without feeling bad or frustrated. The phrase transformational leadership comes from the word to change, where it means altering or converting something into another shape. Transformational leaders are required to transform organizational capital optimally in order to achieve realistic outcomes in line with predetermined goals. There are 4 dimensions in a book Improving Organizational Transformational Leadership. The first dimension is idealized influence. This dimension is described as the leader behavior that makes his subordinate admire, respect, and at the same time trust him. The second one is inspire motivation. In this context, the transformational leader identified himself as a leader who can communicate clear expectations of the efficiency of subordinate employees. This shows their devotion to the objective of the organization and encourage the spirit of their subordinate in the organization through the growth of passion and optimism. Next is the third dimension. The third dimension is creative thinking. Transformation leaders must be willing to come up with fresh concepts, have innovative solutions to the challenges faced by their workers, and empower subordinates to find new ways of conducting organizational tasks. Individual consideration is the last dimension. In this context, a transformational leader is defined as a leader ready to listen carefully to the opinions of his workers. In the meantime, they are ready to pay special attention to the needs of their workers and to the growth of their careers. Transformational leaders are to guide or motivate followers towards predetermined goals by explaining the designation of roles and tasks. These leaders also provide individual appraisal, intellectual stimulation, and charisma. Okay, the last one is scope of research. During Dr. Mahathir Mohamad's term as Prime Minister, he managed to transform a multicultural and multi-ethnic from a simple agrarian state to industrial country. He is the father of modernization for Malaysia. Each of the characteristics of transformational leader can be found inside his personality. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad turned the tin, rubber, and palm oil dependent economy into the trading exchange countries of Southeast Asia and the exporter of most of the world's Dell laptop computers and Intel's top-line processors. The transformational attribute of the leadership of Tun Dr. Mahathir can also be seen before he became Prime Minister. At the time, Tun Dr. Mahathir was setting out choices that had a lasting impact on the state's education sector when he was Minister of Education in the 1970s. He was in charge of presenting the new school curriculum for both the critical and the auxiliary schools. The framework for this educational module was set out in the 1979 Mahathir Report, which acknowledged that the school education modules were overly content and recommended one intended to provide a comprehensive education for every single individual to be adapted. With a particular aim to be followed all around, Tun Dr. Mahathir was concerned about the value of acing arithmetic and science, as this was crucial to the instructive development that the HR anticipated reaching the globalization age. Many changes have brought by Tun Dr. Mahathir through the implementation of his policy as the fourth Prime Minister of Malaysia. The changes already succeed mid globalization in Malaysia.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone and to Madam Rusnawati. My name is Nurul Najwa Bazlan and my match number is 263709. So basically I will present on the background aspect of the implementation of policies have been designed by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad during his transformational premiership. So basically, a transformational approach that has been taken by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad as a fourth Prime Minister has made a huge step for Malaysia and from other premiership. Lucas policy is one of the policies that took Malaysia one step forward in regards to be an industrialized country. The spirit of Asian or the spirit from Japan has made Japan rises in power against the Western colonial. Japan always wants to have the same chance as another Western powers. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad impressed with how Japan rose from paralysis after the World War II. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad said the good work ethics, patriotism spirit, and competence shown by the Japanese can be practiced in Malaysia. By doing this, Malaysia has made better progress among all the developing countries. Throughout his premiership, various changes and development happened. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad can be pro to Japan and he ends up being the architect of Malaysia foreign policy and put Japan and Korea close to Malaysia as these countries has recovered greatly after the war. Malaysia-Japan relationship is not only focused on the technology aspect, but Malaysia also keen to learn about the managerial work. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad once implemented by British laws which shown that he is not interested in the Western countries. This policy was actually not to ask people to only buy goods from the Eastern Company, but he wanted Malaysians to see Eastern as a good example to be taken, which we will not only dependent on it. The implementation of the Look East policy is a new direction for Malaysia, which is more Asian-oriented rather than dependent on the West. The next slide is economic aspect on privatization policy. The Malaysian privatization policy is also one of the government's initiatives to balance the development of the public and private sectors in Malaysia. The meaning of privatization itself is the transfer of investments, services or the interests of the government sector, whether existing or new, to be handled by the private sector. Since this policy was introduced, many public sectors have been privatized by the government. Among them, the Department of Telekom Malaysia has become Telekom Malaysia Berhad, the Malaysian Highway Authority to Plus Expressway Berhad, and the Department of Civil Aviation has changed to Malaysia Airports Berhad. After Telekom Malaysia was privatized, the telecommunication company went through phases of reform and improvement where Telekom Malaysia Berhad had a clearer company goals and visions in line with the fulfilling the government's aspiration in achieving vision of 2020. With the development of the TM's telecommunications system in the mid-1990s, Telekom Malaysia Berhad has become one of the second largest telecommunications companies in Southeast Asia. Telekom Malaysia Berhad has become a monopoly holder for the provision of telephone networks. The company also has a strong stake in the mobile phone communications market after taking over Celcom Berhad and incorporating it with its own mobile services. We have been talking about the policy on the political aspect and economic aspect. So now we are going to talk about social aspect on educational policy. Previously, before Malaysia achieved peace, the educational system was too narrow because it is only focused more on spirituality education, which bases on the Al-Quran and Hadith texts through books in Arabic. The colonial powers insist Malays only work as farmers and live in rural areas. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad has seen Malay people have been discriminated against by the colonial power greatly. He then made the transformation by amending the educational policy. Tun Dr. Mahathir has to change educational policy with efforts to eradicate policy and creating justice for Malays. He also has amended College University Act 1974 by placing the university administration directly under the Ministry of Education. The issue of poor English among the Malay people have made the Malays lagging behind in education, and a small chance of getting a job during an interview at the multinational companies who invested in Malaysia. And I think that was a shame for Malays itself. To strengthen educational development policy, Tun Dr. Mahathir has drafted the National Education Philosophy 1988. The philosophy itself had emphasized on overall aspects included spirituality, intellect, physical, and emotions. In many countries, education is the most important pillar in order to establish a developed country. Education has been the indicator to measure the progress of a country itself. Now we are going to discuss the implementation of Look East policy in Malaysia made by Tun Dr. Mahathir. Malaysia has made a huge transformation among all the Asian countries and other developing countries after the implementation of Look East policy. Even though Tun Dr. Mahathir have been greatly criticized as a chronistic, authoritarian, and hypocritical, he is very look forward to ensure Malaysia can be known at the international arena. The criticism he received is just as incinerated to him and never made him hinder his spirit for the glory of Malaysia. The ability to make a high-risk decision is one of the features in Tun Dr. Mahathir's policy implementations. Tun Dr. Mahathir has encouraged Malaysians to learn Japanese values. The outdated Malay mentality about shame should be abolished and needs to improvise so that it will change Malaysians to be more outspoken and have self-esteem in whatever they do. This is because when people have no sense of shame, they will do outstanding work and succeed in whatever they do. The value system needs changes. If they still act to the shame, they will never have discipline in their mind and will not going to achieve another level of progress in life. This is the idea behind the Look East policy. It is all about the changes in the value system. The implementation of the privatization policy in the economic aspect can see. Through this policy, Syarikat Telekom Malaysia Berhad is committed to efforts to highlight Malaysia in national events. Malaysia's prominence in this event not only involves the technology and multimedia industry, but also in major sporting events such as Litwa di Langkawi. The involvement of telecom companies in the field of sports show that the private sector is also concerned about the intelligence of society. A smart society will contribute to the development of a balanced country. Syarikat Telekom Malaysia Berhad took the opportunity by sponsoring the largest bicycle racing event outside the Europe that achieved world status. This international sports event is one of the promotions from Telekom Malaysia Berhad in introducing Malaysia as an attractive tourist destination apart from being an ideal sports venue. Privatization policy also shows that the private sector has a clearer and more focused goals as well as providing technological facilities to the community. And the last part for me is the implementation of educational policy implemented by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad during his transformational premiership. Education is one of the important elements or branches under its policy. Tun Dr. Mahathir saw that the spirit and craftsmanship of the Japanese people in seeking knowledge was extraordinary. That is why he is determined to produce quality Malaysians as well as balance human capital in various fields. Transformations implemented by Tun Dr. Mahathir in the field of education from primary education to higher education. He implemented the ideas of reform in modernizing the country's education system based on or inspired from Japanese and Korean. Among the reforms implemented by him is the establishment of the International Islamic University of Malaysia, IUM. The concept of this university is to highlight the field of Islamic studies where students can choose the field that suits their interests based on Islamic education. The same goes for University Science Islam Malaysia, USIM. USIM was originally established in 1998 and is one of the 12 earliest public education institutions in Malaysia. The purpose of the establishment of USIM is to uphold Islamic education and highlight it in the mainstream education of the country and then emphasize the knowledge of information technology and research in its field of study. For Tun Dr. Mahathir, the mastery of knowledge is jihad in Islam, and knowledge is the main pillar in the formation of a developed country because knowledgeable people are invaluable national assets to ensure that the country can be inherited by the knowledgeable. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. So as you can see in the slide that there are several differences and similarities to highlight evidence about Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad as a Malaysian Prime Minister who transformed. This transformation is clearer in the terms of the policy implemented by him to bring a new change to Malaysia. Before I elaborate further, my name is Mohamad and my matrix number is 263465. Based on the slide listed, this is seen when all the implementation of the policy that has been brought by him successfully created Malaysia as one of the developed countries in the Southeast Asian region. Its progress can be examined not only in terms of development seen by the naked eye, but also internally. The title Father of Modernization can also be used as evidence for why he can be categorized as a leader who led to transformation. As a previous reference, leadership transformation is one of the leaders who can influence his subordinates to pursue his interests and bring change to his leadership organization. It is outlined under the implementation of policies by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, who continues to be the main point of change in Malaysia. Examples of policies are such as the Look East policy, which covers the political aspect. The privatization policy is a reference to the economic aspect, and the social aspect is represented by the educational development policy. Proof of the Look East policy is one of the policies that makes Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad as a Malaysian Prime Minister who brought about change, and if it is used as a point of comparison between other Malaysian Prime Ministers. This is because it could be found that most of the Malaysian Prime Ministers who were previously more pro-Western started from Tunku Abdul Rahman Al-Haj to Tun Abdullah bin Ahmad Badawi, in line with the history of Malaysia, which has once colonized by the Western powers. The British became the point of reference for the previous Prime Minister to implement foreign policy and customs. Different from the others, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad sees the Eastern region as a reference for Malaysia's leadership and development. The privatization policy implemented by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad is also the result of his efforts that lead to change in the context of the Malaysian economy. This change can be seen more clearly when public or government-owned companies that have previously been converted to private status. Cooperation between Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad along with others previous Prime Minister existed when this policy was implemented. This policy is aimed at developing the Malaysian economy, which indirectly continues to affect the living standards of the community. The implementation of this policy has brought change and opened the eyes, the minds of Malaysians to change the setting of education in their life. This transformation has also led to a change in the level and the status of educated Malaysians. It is undeniable that the previous Prime Minister also focused on the development of people's education, but as a result of the implementation of this policy, the people can see more clearly with the naked eye that the people's education is granted and protected. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad proved that he is a leader in making significant leadership transformation. Among the significant items resulting from the change made by him is the Petronas Twin Towers, or more commonly known as KLCC. This can be used as side information to further strengthen his evidence as the Prime Minister or transformation leader owned by Malaysia. This tower has gained the world and international recognition when it is achieved as the third tallest tower in the world before the existence of the Khalifa Constellation Tower. It is different from the previous Prime Minister's leadership, where the implementation of the reforms is there but can only be felt without being able to see clearly. Construction of the Penang Bridge that connects an island, Penang, to the mainland of Peninsular Malaysia. This can be indirectly be the starting point for the state of Penang, Malaysia as a developed state. Significantly, it can be seen in terms of development and industry that is there as a result of Penang's relationship with Peninsular Malaysia. Construction of this bridge proved that one of the successfully transformation performed by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad to bring change to a place. It is even clearer when seen when Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad has developed and made change to Langkawi district. Langkawi used to be just an isolated island in Peninsular Malaysia with no development, but now its views and status has changed to the public. This is said so because Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad has developed Langkawi as a developed island, so this gets the attention of tourists from foreign countries, bringing the island to the international level with the status of a duty-free island, and there is a international level event like Lima has been practices in Langkawi. So that's all from my part. Thank you.
So in a nutshell, it is clear that Tun Dr. Mahathir has not only developed this country with only one style of leadership, but he also implements autocratic and democratic style depending on the situation, and also he has shown accordingly and proved it by his amazing achievement. And there are a lot positive things about Tun Dr. Mahathir because of his figure and also his personality that can be fit in our life. And Tun Dr. Mahathir has shown that the basic element of knowledge is the key to become a good leader and an effective leader. And a good leader must always set a good example to his subordinates and also the community.